Beneath the flickering glow of candlelight, where shadows dance and ancient dust settles on forgotten parchments, we embark on a profound journey. Tonight, our quest leads us to a question that has quietly echoed through the ages, a whisper from the very edges of our understanding. What does the Bible reveal about life before we are born? It's a query that touches the deepest chords of our existence, stirring not merely curiosity, but a yearning for connection to something eternal, something that precedes our first breath. The Scriptures, often seen as a guide for our earthly sojourn, surprisingly offer tantalizing glimpses into this prenatal realm, inviting us to ponder the very origins of our soul. We promise to navigate these ancient texts with reverence and scholarly diligence, piecing together fragments of revelation that speak to our pre-existence, our calling, and the divine intentionality behind each life. This is not a journey into speculative fantasy, but a sober exploration of biblical truth, seeking to uncover the profound narrative of our beginnings long before we knew ourselves. Join us, then, as we open the sacred pages and allow the wisdom of ages to illuminate the mystery of life before life. The divine tapestry of pre-existence, unraveling ancient threads. To truly grasp the biblical understanding of life before birth, we must first immerse ourselves in the historical and cultural milieu in which these concepts emerged. Ancient Near Eastern thought, particularly within the Israelite tradition, often viewed life as an interconnected tapestry, where the present was inextricably linked to the past and the future, woven by divine hands. Unlike some Hellenistic philosophies that posited a pre-existent soul wandering independently, the Hebrew worldview rooted existence firmly in God's creative act and foreknowledge. The emphasis was less on a literal, conscious prenatal life in the modern sense, and more on God's sovereign plan and the individual's purpose being established before their physical manifestation. This understanding isn't about reincarnation or a previous physical life, but about a divine blueprint, a spiritual reality existing in the mind of God. Decoding the Scripture, echoes from the eternal. The Scriptures, while not explicitly detailing a prenatal conscious existence for every individual in the way we might imagine, nonetheless provide powerful verses that hint at a profound pre-creational knowledge and purpose. These passages are not scattered accidents but deliberate brushstrokes in the grand narrative of God's interaction with humanity. Perhaps the most poignant and direct revelation comes from the prophet Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 1-5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Here, the word knew, yada, is far richer than a mere intellectual acquaintance. In biblical Hebrew, yada implies an intimate, personal relationship, a deep understanding, and even a covenantal bond. It suggests that God's connection with Jeremiah transcended his physical conception. God didn't just foresee Jeremiah. He knew him intimately, purposefully, establishing his role as a prophet even before his earthly journey began. This isn't just predestination. It speaks to a prior relationship, an understanding established in the divine mind. Similarly, in Isaiah 49-1, the prophet Isaiah recounts, "The Lord called me from the womb. From the body of my mother he named my name." While this could be interpreted as God's calling becoming evident at birth, the phrase "called me from the womb" carries an intriguing resonance, suggesting a prenatal election, a divine designation made before the individual even drew breath. This aligns with the idea that our identity and purpose are not solely products of our environment or choices, but are deeply intertwined with a divine appointment. Moving into the New Testament, Paul's letters offer further insights. In Galatians 1:15, he testifies, "But when he who had set me apart before I was born, and who called me by his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son to me." Paul clearly articulates a sense of being set apart, o phio omicron rho zeta omega, aphorizo, meaning to separate, mark off by boundaries, by God even before his birth. This implies a specific, deliberate choice made by God concerning Paul's life and ministry long before his physical existence. It's a powerful affirmation of divine intentionality, suggesting a prenatal assignment of purpose. Furthermore, the very concept of election, so central to biblical theology, points to a pre-temporal understanding. Ephesians 1-4 states, "Even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him in love." While us here refers to the collective body of believers, it extends the idea of divine choice and purpose to an epoch even before creation itself. This points to a cosmic, eternal plan in which individuals are envisioned and chosen, not merely reacting to events, but fulfilling a preordained role within God's grand design. These passages collectively weave a tapestry where individual lives are not accidents of biology but intricate designs in the mind, known and purposed before their physical manifestation. The hidden theological meaning, more than mere foresight. These scriptural insights reveal a profound theological truth. Our lives are not random. God's knowledge of us before we were born transcends mere foresight. It speaks to a deep, intimate, and purposeful connection. It implies that each life is conceived in the mind of God with a specific intention. This challenges a purely materialistic view of existence, suggesting a spiritual dimension to our beginnings. It speaks to the sovereignty of God, whose plans are not contingent on human actions, but are established in eternity. It underscores the preciousness of every individual life, formed not by chance, but by divine design. This prenatal knowledge also informs our understanding of grace and calling. If God knew us and consecrated us before birth, then our purpose is not something we stumble upon randomly, but something woven into the fabric of our being by the Creator. It's an invitation to discover and align with this divine intention for our lives, rather than striving to create purpose from a vacuum. It offers solace, especially in moments of doubt or uncertainty, reminding us that we are known, loved, and purposed by an omniscient God. Controversies and theories. Navigating the nuances. The interpretation of these verses is not without its controversies and varying theological perspectives. Some traditions emphasize God's foreknowledge as solely a passive awareness of future events, without implying a prenatal life or conscious existence of the soul before conception. They argue that knowing us before birth means God simply knew who we would be, not that we existed as separate entities. This view often maintains that the soul is created at conception or at birth, without a prior state. Other perspectives, particularly within certain spiritual or mystical traditions, might interpret these verses as hinting at a more literal pre-existence of the soul, where individual spirits might have resided with God before being placed in a human body. However, mainstream Christian theology largely rejects this pre-existence of souls doctrine, finding it unsupported by the broader biblical narrative, which emphasizes God's creative act in forming each person. The biblical emphasis remains on God's unique creative act for each individual, rather than a storehouse of pre-existent souls. The nuance lies in distinguishing between God's eternal knowledge and purpose for an individual versus the individual having a conscious, active life before physical birth. The scriptures lean heavily towards the former, emphasizing God's omniscient plan and intentionality rather than a literal, prenatal consciousness for every human being. The debate often centers on how deeply we can infer conscious existence from God's knowing and calling. The most robust biblical understanding acknowledges God's profound, personal knowledge and sovereign purpose for each life, established in eternity, without necessarily positing a conscious, active prenatal state for individual souls. As the candlelight gently flickers, casting long shadows that deepen the mysteries we've explored, we arrive at the culmination of our journey. We have traversed the ancient scriptures, from the prophetic declarations of Jeremiah and Isaiah to the theological insights of Paul, all whispering fragments of a profound truth. Our lives are not random occurrences, but carefully woven threads in the divine tapestry of creation. God knew us, purposed us, and set us apart even before our physical form took shape in the womb. This prenatal knowledge isn't a mere intellectual foresight on God's part. It is an intimate, relational understanding, a declaration of divine intentionality that imbues every life with inherent value and purpose. What, then, does this mean for us? It is a call to profound reflection. If our lives were envisioned and purposed by God before our first breath, then surely there is a grander narrative at play than we often perceive. It invites us to search for that divine purpose, to align our lives with a calling that resonated in the heart of God before time began. It offers solace and meaning, reminding us that we are known, loved, and intrinsically valuable, not for what we achieve, but for who we are in the eyes of our Creator. As the flame slowly dwindles, may the echoes of these ancient truths continue to resonate within us, inspiring a deeper awe for the miraculous story of our existence, a story that began long before we ever knew our own name.